In this video, I want to have a look at the interquartile range. So the interquartile range is our second way of measuring the spread of the data. So our first way of measuring the spread was looking at the range, but the range has a lot of disadvantages. So we're going to have a look at the interquartile range because it's more mathematically valid. So the interquartile range is often shortened just to IQR. So to be able to find the interquartile range, first we need to talk about what quartiles are. So we have three quartiles. Quartile 1, or Q1, cuts off the bottom 25% of the scores, so it cuts off the bottom quarter of the scores. Q2 is our second quartile, and it's going to cut off the bottom 50% of the scores. It's also called the median because it's going to cut those scores right down the middle. And Q3 cuts off the bottom 75%, or we could say it cuts off the top 25% of the scores. So we're splitting those scores into 4 even groups. So each group contains 25% of those scores. So to find those quartiles, what we're going to do, the first step is that we're going to find the median. Our second step then is to find Q1 by finding the median of that bottom half of the data. And then we're going to find Q3 by again finding the median, but this time we're going to do it to the top half of the data. Now obviously if we're finding quartiles, just like when we're finding the median, we do need to make sure that all our scores are arranged in ascending order before we start. Alright, so once we've found our quartiles, then we can find the interquartile range. So the interquartile range, the IQR, finds the distance between Q3 and Q1. So it finds how spread out the middle 50% of the scores are. So to find the interquartile range, we are just going to go Q3 minus Q1. So the interquartile range is an improvement on the range because it's not affected by outliers. So for example, if we're asked to calculate the interquartile range for each of these sets of data. So the first thing we're going to do for this one is to find the median. Now I'm not going to cross the scores off like I did when we first introduced the median because I'm not going to be able to see them. So just really lightly, I've got one off the top and one off the bottom, and again, until we get to the middle. So in this data set, our Q2 is going to be 11. Now we also need to find Q1 and Q3. So to find Q1, I'm going to ignore this top half of the data, and I'm just going to look at that 3, 4, 7, 9 and find the middle of those. So ignoring this section, and I'm finding the median. So the median there would be right in between the 4 and the 7, so we've got 2 scores below it and 2 scores above it. So halfway between 4 and 7 would be 5.5. And then to find Q3, I'm going to ignore the bottom half of the data, and I'm just going to look at those top 4 scores there. And again, find the median of that section would be between the 19 and the 20. So our Q3 would be 19.5. So that means that my interquartile range is going to be 19.5 minus 5.5, which will give me 14. So that means there's 14 units between our Q3 and our Q1. So there's 14 units is the spread of our middle 50% of scores. For question 2, again, our scores are already arranged in ascending order. So I'm going to find Q2, or my median, first. So one off the top, one off the bottom. And this time my Q2, my median, is going to fall right in between 2 scores. So my median is going to be 64.5. So now I have to find Q3 and Q1. So I'm going to ignore these top scores and just find the median of the bottom half here. So I've got 6 scores there, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So my Q1 is going to be right there. So halfway between 59 and 61 is 60. And then if I'm looking at my top half of the data, My Q3 is going to be right between that 70 and the 72, so it's going to be 71. So my interquartile range is going to be 71 minus 60, which will give me 11. So let's have a look at the interquartile range.